There we go. Now we're on to it. And there we go. All right, so we just call it Algebra Review. We'll do a little bit of review, maybe a week. Well, it's only like half a week anyway, and I don't even know what tomorrow. I don't even know what the schedule is for tomorrow with that prayer convocation thing. So I don't know if we'll have class or if we won't have class. So I'll probably give this 2 weeks with the algebra. Before I start, we'll also have a quiz. I've got like 2 sections. We'll do like the first week, have a quiz. We'll do the second week, have a quiz on the algebra stuff. I'm not going to have a major test on it, all right? And then we can start with the geometry after a couple weeks. Everybody good with that? You feel better having a review, or do you feel it's a waste of time? You feel better? Okay, all right. Yeah, I figured you would, so let's do that. All right, so first thing we're going to do, whoops, I got to change a couple settings on this program. I got to do this every time, and it seems like I always forget. There we go. And let's see if this works. Yay, it works. Okay, we're on now. So we are recording, and I will put it up on YouTube. And hopefully, if you need it, you can go back and look to see it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do addition first. Okay, so there's a couple rules for addition. So I'm just going to write addition, and there's basically 2 scenarios where you're adding 2 numbers, okay? That's what we're talking. We're not talking about adding 5 numbers, just adding 2 numbers. If you were to add 5 numbers, what do you do? Like if I said, I'm not asking you to do this in your head, but what's 7 plus 3 plus 5 plus 9 plus 2? Do you do all that at one time in your head? No, you would do 2 at a time, wouldn't you? All right, so that's what these rules are. These rules are just 2 at a time. So when you're adding 2 numbers together, right? Here's the possible scenarios, okay? You could add 2 numbers with the same sign, and you could add 2 numbers with, I'll say different, with 2 different signs, okay? Different signs. Okay, so the same signs and different signs. So here's the rule for same signs. If you have the same signs, here's what you do. You just add the numbers, you add, and then keep the sign. Then, now let's forget the then. We'll just say add and keep the sign. Keep the sign. All right, so let's do a demonstration. Super easy. Easiest math problem you'll do all year. Everybody ready for it? All right, let's go like 2 plus 5. So everybody should know that. Everybody get an A for today. What's 2 plus 5? Very good. 2 plus 5 is 7. But how do we know it's a positive 7? Well, we go by the rules. The rule says just add the 2 numbers together and keep the sign. By the way, do they have the same signs? Yeah, what's the sign of this 2? How do you know it's positive? It doesn't have a plus in front of it. Right, because basically there's no negative, all right? If there's no sign in front of it, it automatically means it's positive, okay? This one, it kind of has a sign in front of it, doesn't it? That plus right there. But it's a plus positive 5. So both of these are positives, agreed? So they both have the same sign. So what's the rule? Add them up. What's 2 plus 5? 7. And keep the sign. So what is the sign for both of those? Positive. So what's the sign for your answer going to be? Positive. Good. Easy enough. You really didn't, like if I told you 2 plus 5, you didn't have to go through all that rule, that whole rule in your head, did you? You just know what 2 plus 5 is, all right? But it's a little bit trickier when you start putting some negatives in there. So what if I said negative 2 plus negative 5? Do they both have the same signs? Yeah, they're both what? Both negative, right. All right, so they both have the same sign, so what's our rule? Just add the 2 numbers together, and then what's our sign at the end? Just keep the sign, which is negative, right. Everybody got that? So let's add them. Just add 2 and 5. What's 2 and 5? 7. And then what's the sign? It's negative. And that's how you do it. At first, we learn the rule and all that kind of stuff, but eventually, you don't even have to think about it. You should just be able to look at it. Now, this worksheet and some books will do this. They might put parentheses. Now, you guys have already had Algebra 1, so what's like the first thing that pops in your head when you see 2 numbers with parentheses? Well, what do you think? Well, yeah, you do the stuff in the parentheses, but what if there's just 1 number in the parentheses? What's like the first thing that kind of pops in your mind? Multiply, right, multiply. But is this multiplication, though? No. How do you know it's not multiplication? There's parentheses, and we see parentheses all the time with multiplication. How do you know we don't multiply those 2 numbers? That's right, this plus sign in between, okay? Not that hard, right? These aren't hard questions. You know, you've done this before. I get it. But I'm just trying to refresh your memory, get all the summer out of your brain, right? So this is a plus. So you are adding them. This problem and this problem, well, before I put the parentheses, or the exact same problem. You could write it either way, all right? You don't have to have the parentheses there. But I do that because the worksheet, you'll see several problems with parentheses. You'll see stuff like this. You'll see -2 plus parentheses -5. Is that any different than this one or the first one before we put the parentheses? No, it's the same exact thing, right? Just because it's not in parentheses, the parentheses really aren't even needed there. But some people, some teachers don't like the plus and the negative like right next to each other. They like to separate it with that parentheses. I just think it's too much, but you know, it just depends on your preference. You'll see a variation of these on this worksheet that I'm going to give you in a few minutes, okay? And this is also what? It's -7, right? It's the same exact thing. Everybody good with that? Yeah, it's easy. So same signs. You only got two situations when you got the same signs. They're either both what? Positive, or they're both, very good, negative, all right? This one is what? Different signs. So you got two numbers, so what could your signs be? One is positive and the other one is negative. Exactly right, okay? So you got a situation where one is positive and one's negative. Let's use the same numbers, okay? So let's go 2 plus -5, all right? Well, actually, I shouldn't do that yet. I got to write down the rule first, and then we'll drop that down a little bit. What's that? An alarm? What? I don't hear an alarm. Oh, I guess we're all right. I didn't hear it at all. Maybe it's my old man ears. I can't hear anything. All right, here we go. 2 plus -5. So we need a rule for different signs. So here's the rule. Even though it's an addition problem, this is all still addition problems. See the plus right there? It's an addition problem. But the rule says to subtract the two numbers and keep the sign of the larger number. Keep the sign. I don't hear it. I'm over here. I got fans all over the place. Is it in the hallway? It's on the back. Because the maintenance guys were down there at that door, so they're probably testing it out or something. All right, here we go. Subtract the two numbers and keep the sign. Keep what sign? I can't just say keep the sign because I don't know. I got one positive, one negative. Which sign do I keep? Right. I'll say the larger, but you're right. You could say higher. It's fine. Keep the sign. Of the larger number. I'm running out of room. I'll just put that little symbol. That used to be numbers. Now it's hashtag. But you ever realize that's for number? You still know that? Okay, good. All right, I didn't know if it's still that or not. All right, so let's do it. So 2 plus -5. They're different signs, right? So we got to use this rule. So it says subtract the two numbers. So I got a 5 and a 2. What do I get when I go 5 minus 2? Just 5 minus 2. Just regular old 5 minus 2. 3, right? But I got to figure out what the sign is. What sign do I keep? I keep the sign of the what? Of the larger number. 5 is bigger than 2, right? So 5 has a negative, so my answer is going to have a negative. Boom, just like that. Some of you guys might have just been able to do that in your head and not even thought about it, and that's fine. That's good, actually. That's a good thing. But some of you guys might have forgotten the rule, and there it is. Maybe you didn't even learn the rule. I don't know. But that's how you do it. All right, so if they're different signs, you subtract the two numbers and keep the sign of the bigger number. Now, some people might look at this and say, oh, Mr. Hamrick, 5 is not the biggest number because that's a -5. -5 is smaller than 2. But we're just looking at the, I hate to say this, but the absolute value of the numbers, just the number itself without the sign, okay? So forget the signs. Which one's the bigger number? 5. What's the sign of that? It's negative, so my answer is negative. Everybody with me? Is this familiar? You remember learning this? Okay, good. I hope so. I'd be disappointed if you didn't learn this before. But I'm teaching it from scratch. This is exact. If I was going to teach an Algebra 1 class, this is exactly what I would be doing in an Algebra 1 class. All right, let's switch it around a little bit. Let's go -2 plus +5. All right, so this time the 2 is negative instead of the 5. But you still have different signs, don't you? One's negative, one's positive. So what's the rule? Subtract the two numbers and what? Keep the sign of the larger number, right? So 5 minus 2 is 3. 5 is the larger number. It's what? It's positive this time, isn't it? Okay, and so my answer is positive. Do you have to put a plus right there to show that it's positive? No. If you don't have anything, automatically we just assume it's positive. That's not too hard, is it? No. All right, so that's addition. What else do we have to learn? Subtraction. That's right. We got to learn subtraction. And there's one rule, only one rule for subtraction. And let's just put it up here like this. So let's write subtraction. There's one rule. There's a couple ways to say the rule, and I'll tell you how other teachers, I think Mrs. Larson says it a different way than I say it, but it seems like women teachers seem to like the cute little fun ways to learn things. I'm an old grumpy old man. I just like learning things just straightforward. So here's what I say, and then I'll show you what other teachers say. And you can use either expression. It doesn't make any difference. But for subtraction, I just say, I'll put it in quotes, I just say add the opposite. It's short, it's sweet, it doesn't rhyme, it's not cute, but that's all right. All right, so I just say add the opposite. Do you know what the other way to say this rule? You might have learned it in algebra last year, maybe in pre-algebra with Mrs. Larson or something like that. Anybody? Add a line. Have you ever heard that? Add a line, change the sign. Yeah, a lot of people like to say that. Add a line, change the sign. It's exactly the same exact thing. Okay, I'll show you. I'll do an example here in a minute, and I'll show you. You could say that as well. But I just like to say, just add the opposite. It's short, sweet, it's quick, and it's to the point. So let's do this. Let's do an easy number. Let's go 5 minus 2. Now, you should be able to just do that in your head, but we're going to apply the rule to it just to show you that it still works, okay? So what's 5 minus 2? We've already done that today. It's 3, all right? Pretty easy. But let's apply the rule that says what? Subtraction means add the opposite. So there's a subtraction right there. So I turn this into an addition, okay? So, bam, I turn that into an addition. But is that the same thing as 5 minus 2? No. I got to do one more thing. Add the what? Add the opposite. So this is a positive 2. What's the opposite of positive 2? Negative 2. So 5 plus negative 2 is the exact same thing as just 5 minus 2. Everybody see that? But we turned it from a subtraction into a what? Talk to me. Into a... No. From subtraction to addition. Very good. You got it. All right. So it's the same thing, though. Same exact thing. We just applied the rule, add the opposite. Or you could say, add a line, change the sign. If you like that better and you can remember that better, that's perfectly fine. I don't mind. Okay? But it's still positive 3, isn't it? Because what's the rule? I got two different signs, so I subtract the two numbers, 3, take the sign of the bigger number, 5, positive 3. Have I confused you yet? Okay, good. So let's do it another way, though. Instead of 5 minus 2, let's go what? 2 minus 5. Now that one may not be quite as easy, all right? Maybe if you've done a lot of this stuff and you've been doing a lot of it, you could just look at it and tell what it is. But after a long summer break and all that kind of stuff, you might not remember. So let's apply the rule. It's subtraction, so what do? Add what? Add the opposite. So we make that add, or add a line, and then change the sign, or add the opposite. Okay? That's what we've done. Add the opposite. So again, what's the rule? I got two different signs. So what happens when I get two different signs? I subtract the two numbers, take the sign of the bigger number. Which one's the bigger number? 5. It's negative, so my answer is negative. So 2 minus 5 is negative 3. 2 minus 5. You with me on that? It's not too hard, is it? No. Let's do do this one. I think this is the only other option. Let's go, well, it's not, but I got two other options. Watch, let's do this. 2 minus negative 5. That looks more complicated, but actually, once you get used to these are actually kind of easy. So let's do the rule. It's subtraction, right? That's your subtraction right there, that first minus sign. So what do? It is subtraction. We do what? Add the opposite, or add a line, whatever you're going to call it, right? We just make it plus. But I got to take the opposite of this. What's the opposite of negative? It's positive. So when you get two minuses next to each other like that, what does it really become? Just a plus. That's right. Okay, that's why I said it's actually kind of easy. When I see two negatives right next to each other, boom, boom, make them plus. All right, and then now it's super easy. 2 plus 5 is 7, and we're good to go. We got one more, and I think I've covered all the different variations of this once I do this one. So what's this? Negative 2 minus negative 5. I'll let you try that. I'll give you 15 seconds. Ready? Go. All right. What's the first thing you did? Add a line, change sign, right? Or add the opposite. Boom, boom, right? Now we got two different signs, right? One's negative, one's positive. So what's the rule? Subtract them. Keep the sign of the bigger number. Which one's the bigger number? 5, so it's positive 3. There you go. Just like that. I should have been doing this. So when I give you problems to do, if you have to do any math, like in geometry, sometimes you don't do any math. You just tell me like what shape it is or what angle it is, or stuff like that. But when you do some math and you get an answer, you should always circle your answer, okay? Show the problem. If you do any work, show the work, and then circle the answer. So you always do that. I should have said that earlier. I can't think of any other variations of this. Now, they do. Let's see, when do we get out of here? Like 20? We just got our Wednesday time, 21. All right, so I'll tell you what, I'll just give you the worksheet and look at it. Now, they do give you some decimals and they give you some fractions. I'm not going to go over those right now. It's towards the end of the worksheet. There is a front and a back to this worksheet. All right, so make sure that you do turn it over and look at the back, and that's it. So your homework is worksheet. I'll just shorten it. Worksheet, and I numbered them. I just wrote it on the worksheet. Worksheet number 1. Well, you can look and see. 32. Yeah, it sounds like a lot, but it's not that bad because, I mean, they'll literally take a couple seconds each, those first ones. Okay, now the fractions and the decimals may take a little longer, all right? But and you're not always going to get 30 problems, all right? But these are so easy and so quick. You could get those done really fast. All right, everybody good? All right.